Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Poultry Keepers 360 Live. And Happy New Year, by the way. We started a brand new year. Plus, Poultry Keepers 360 Live starts its third year broadcast this month. So, it's, guys, it seems like we just started this
It
like
does.
about 2 months ago.
It does.
So we're starting our third year, or
We're starting our third year.
we're 2 years old. We're
We're two
not
years
3 years
old, but
old.
we're going
Okay.
into our third year.
Unless
Okay.
we're Chinese.
All right.
Yeah. Folks, tonight we've got a really good show for you. We're going to be talking about from the day the chicks hatch till their day old, from the first day to the first egg. So, coming up, we're going to get right to it. Hey, before we dive into our meat of the matter tonight, I've got something I want to share with you. And you've heard Jeff talk about this, you've heard Karen talk about this, and you've heard me talk about this. But I thought it would be nice to let you hear what somebody else had to say on this subject. And recently, just a couple of days ago, Leanna Howard made a post on, or made a comment on a post in the Poultry Breeders Nutrition site, where she was talking about the poultry showbird and breeder supplement from Portrell. Says, I was introduced to the breeder supplement back around Thanksgiving. I know that feeds have been lacking, but this year it seems worse. What's the chatter I've been hearing around all over as well? My entire feeding regimen had to change to implement this, and I wasn't able to change out 15 breeding groups and 200 chickens all at one time. So I started with three groups. Those groups were all older hens, and within 3 to 4 weeks, those groups were producing larger eggs, healthier, vibrant colors. And I want to add, I wasn't completely following the prescribed recommendations. I was doing the best I could for the holiday season. Always, all of them were doing that, and topping without oil. And there was still major improvement. They started growing their feathers faster than they had in the past after molding. When I say eggs were bigger, hens that always seem to lay small eggs consistently are producing large and extra large eggs. While egg size is good, their overall health is better as well. On New Year's weekend, we started to convert all breeder coops to hanging feeders, and I started mixing feed for half of our flock. Unfortunately, we didn't finish them all. This weekend, we'll finish them all. The birds seem full and are happy after I feed them. And the major plus is they're consuming less feed. While there's a price increase in my feed bill, is actually about the same. So, like I said, all three of us have been talking about this. So now you heard it from the fourth person. And we've had others too, but I thought that one just exceptionally well, and thought I would share that with y'all. Guys, what do you say? We go ahead and get started?
Sure.
Act like we know what we're doing or something?
Might as well start the new year like that. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So, I've culled through a lot of the groups that we're in, and our groups and other groups, but trying to get a feel for what was piquing folks' interest about this time of year. And I saw a lot about starting baby chicks and then growing them out, and then what to do as they got older. So we thought we'd start with tonight from day one. And why is the first week of a chick's life so important? I see that or something very, very similar to it posted many times this time of year. Jeff, what's your thoughts?
Rip, you and I were talking about this earlier today, and there are so many metabolic functions like the circulatory system, the digestive tract, the gut, all of those things in that first 7 days are established, right? And there's so much transformation in that chick, that people, we posted a PDF that really outlines it and describes it to the group file section earlier today. But folks, it's unbelievable how many things, how many, like I said, body functions are established in that first 7 days. right? And it's, I think a lot of people miss it. I mean, as far as proper care, proper nutrition, proper, and everything matters, right? That first 7 days is the most critical in the chick's life.
And one thing I've noticed that if you miss that first 7 days, it's hard to get them caught up after that.
You never catch them up,
Yeah.
right? You don't ever, they might look like the rest of the flock. They might, but they're never going to be 100%, right? They cannot be 100%. Week one, that, like I said, so many things are being developed in that chick's body at a very rapid rate. And week two is almost as important. But that if we miss it in week one, that's actually even shorter than that. In the first 48 hours, they scientifically know, right? This has been studied numerous times. If a chick does, in the first 48 hours, a chick or a chicken establishes its eating habits, right? Whether it's going to be a good eater, whether it's going to be a picky eater, whether it's going to be a floor eater, whatever, right? So in the first 48 hours, the entire life of that chicken, the way it will eat, its aggressiveness towards eating will be established in that first 48 hours, right? We know this. I mean, I'm not making it up. This isn't an old wives' tale. This is real deal. They need to, the commercial industry needs to know this stuff, when it comes to raising chickens. So you got 48 hours to get a chick on feed and on water, to reach it.
You still there?
We can hardly hear you, Jeff.
Yeah.
You hear me?
All right. Well, maybe magically it will fix itself.
We'll hope so.
Yeah.
One thing that Jeff has talked about, and here again, is something we've all talked about before, is early on in a chick's life is to get them started on either whole milk or, for me, I found it's a little easier to get them to start eating yogurt if I mash up an egg and mix it in with that. That seems to attract them to it better. But the dairy products, just believe it or not, it'll really help prevent coccidiosis. And I think I've heard Jeff say that it's not the digestion of the milk itself, it's the good gut bacteria that is associated with the milk that does the trick. Am I correct there, Jeff?
You are. Are you hearing me any better now, Rip, or no?
Yeah.
It's still bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know what happened earlier, but yeah. So the simple sugars like the lactoses, the fats in dairy products, feed the natural bacteria of the digestive tract, right? And those are what we want to feed. And it's an exclusion process. So if we can feed all the natural occurring bacteria in the gut of the chicken, it reduces the space or the area in which the coccidiosis can attach to the intestinal wall and live and breed. So the more we can feed the bacteria with probiotics or milk or other, the less space there is for coccidiosis to live in a digestive tract. That's the thought process behind milk. But, using dairy products or milk products has been around for 100 years. I have an old article from, I believe it's Chino State out in California from 1929, where they discovered that milk controlled coccidiosis. So this isn't new,
Stacy wants to know, raw milk or yogurt better than pasteurized milk?
I don't think it really matters, Stacy, as long as it's whole milk products that still have the fat in it. I come from the thinking where I think raw milk is the best. Yogurt, especially if it's homemade yogurt, it would be second. And yeah, to me, they're better, just simply because they haven't been processed, and heated and all that. But not everybody has access to raw milk and or raw milk yogurt. But I would give it a slight edge.
And folks, don't forget, if you've got a question, be sure and ask us. We are more than happy to answer it on what we're talking about tonight, or really any other question. If we can, we'll be happy to deal with them during the course of the show. So that gets us through the important things to really do during that first week. And Jeff, one question I see come up a lot, and I see being talked about a lot, is the people just seem to feel the need for for whatever reason. I know there's multiple reasons out there that they need to feed a really high protein chick starter.
All right, before you guys start on that, let's get John's question out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does
goat
it
milk.
matter what
Goat,
species?
no, it doesn't. Goat's milk is great. So, again, pretty much anything. I don't care if you got horse milk, camel milk, goat milk, yak milk. Doesn't water buffalo. They're all going to work.
As long as it's an actual animal, right? Not
Right.
almond and
Not almond, not coconut,
Yeah.
not cashew. No, those don't work. But yeah.
All right, keep going then.
So yeah, Rip. I mean, I see it too. And I don't even really know how to address it. And I'm glad you brought it up tonight. I see people feeding 26% game bird starters, and I see people feeding 24% starters, and it's there is a danger to this, right? Because the kidney has to process unutilized protein, in the digestive tract. So, especially if these higher proteins are being fed for too long, right, way past, that need for that higher protein is really only in the first 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. Then that protein should be gradually coming down. You got the starter phase, grower phase, developer phase. It needs to be coming down. So forcing the kidneys to deal with that extra protein is hard on them. And the timing of this is really good because just in the last week and a half, I've actually helped a couple people identify a condition called gout. And what happens is the chicken will high step. Rip, you ever seen a chicken take that exaggerated, really big step?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So high stepping is one of the signs. And there was another picture posted on one of the groups earlier this week where they had processed a chicken, for table meat. And they showed the picture of the feet were actually ammonia burned, right, from excess nitrogen being fed. So, feeding extra protein at the wrong times actually does as much harm as it does good. What the reason people are doing it though, Rip, so let's back up again. But the reason they're doing it is they see a response in feathers.
Mm-hmm.
So people with show birds, right, they see a feather boost. What they don't realize is what they're really getting are the amino acids. They're not getting the protein. The amino acids are higher in a higher protein feed, right? So they're getting the amino acids. Meanwhile, the bird's dealing with all that excess nitrogen, which comes out as ammonia, which is harmful to the lungs. It's harmful to the feet. It's harmful to you. So I understand why they're doing it. I think there's a better way to do it, right? And I think,
I agree.
Just working on bumping up those amino acids to the appropriate levels, they're going to see the same results, and they can save themselves a lot of money because those higher protein feeds are expensive.
They are.
And
Golly.
really unnecessary.
Well, you were talking about it being harmful to the lungs and to the feet. but there's a danger, and then it could actually burn the eyes on our birds.
Yeah, that's what the ammonia does.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, for years, and people can look it up and Google it, and maybe we can find some pictures of ammonia burn, on a chicken eye. But the eye will kind of, instead of being really glassy and clear, it'll kind of get cloudy and have a dull look to it. And I know we've talked about it before, but here's the thing. Um, a chicken can only handle up to about 10 parts per million in the air. And that number doesn't mean anything to anybody listening. But here's the key thing: the human nose cannot detect ammonia until it hits 20 parts per million. So by the time you can smell it, we're already twice as high as what a chicken's lung tissue can manage. Okay. So if you can smell ammonia, I don't want to say it's too late, but there's already damage occurring, right? So, airflow in these chicken barns, believe it or not, your bird can tolerate cold temperatures better than they can stinky air. So don't
Yes.
close up your chicken coops too tight. You gotta have airflow.
Ventilation is so, so important, folks.
It's more important than the feed.
And, I see pictures of folks going out and wrapping their coops in plastic and all that, and I can't help but wonder,
Yeah,
oh, where's the airflow, guys? Come on now.
yeah. You think the cellophane aisle at the grocery store is empty by the amount they're wrapping around those chicken pens. They want to
Uh,
bundle them up and make it airtight, and they don't realize they're doing more harm than good.
yes.
Honestly, same thing in the incubators.
Yeah,
People
Oh,
are
yeah.
like, "Oh, I've got to wrap this up so that we can have it be as consistent a temperature as possible." And
but they don't realize the downside to it. So, yeah.
all right, are we?
Yeah, let's go on to the next one, Karen. And here's another one that I'm starting to see an uptick in these sorts of questions. At what age can chicks go without supplemental heat? And invariably, what I'll tell folks is I don't necessarily always go by a set particular age because it can vary from breed to breed. It can vary whether your birds are slow feathering or fast feathering. Um, my Rhode Island Reds, they don't have enough feathers on them at 4 weeks to keep themselves warm to begin with. So I let them go a little bit longer, and I'd reduce the heat. But Jeff, and you work with the commercial folks a lot. What are they doing now?
Well, we know, again, we're back to fact-based information here, but we know that a chick cannot regulate its own body temperature for the first 10 days for sure, right? 100% first 10 days. Now, this is on a Cornish cross that grows, very, very, very quickly. It's at least 2 weeks for pretty much, like a commercial hen or something like that. But Rip, you brought up this really great point. Is and I wanted to add to it is that you want to gradually reduce the temperature, right? And all chicks should be pretty good by 3 weeks old, right? 4 at the longest, depending on how slow they develop. But if you gradually, raise the heater or you gradually reduce the temperature in the brooder, you observe the chicks, and if you see them huddling and piling, then they're not ready to be without heat. You have to make the observation. It's really what the chick is doing. There's not there's not this perfect timeline or calendar where you can say, all right, day 14, I'm going to take the heat out. Day 21, I'm going to take the heat out. It doesn't work that way. Every batch of chicks will be different. And you have to watch, are they evenly spaced out? Are they all right underneath the heat source? Are they, all right? And all the large commercial breed companies have excellent brooder management. pictures, the whole bit. I mean, we can pull them off. I think the one show that Alyssa did way back in the beginning,
Yes.
she had all those pictures included there. Success with baby chicks, or
Yep.
how to start a baby chick.
Mm-hmm.
Those pictures are all there. So they'll tell you what the chicks are doing. So if your heat is right, if it's located correctly, if it's the right temperature, yeah, we've covered this on more than one occasion. But you have to spend time and watch them. You can't just go by a calendar or a time frame. That's my opinion on the supplemental heat.
Yeah, well, chickens are definitely not one size fits all or one date fits all.
Yep.
Like Jeff says, you got to watch those birds. You got to walk the flock and pay attention to what's going on. And coupled with that question is the next one. At what age can chicks be allowed outside? I see that a lot too. I think, and for a lot of the same reasons, you got to watch your birds. You got to pay attention to your birds, because invariably I see folks putting baby chicks out that look far too young to be out on pasture. They don't have a mom to give them warmth whenever they need it. So just use good common sense. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a big topic of conversation with the pastured poultry people?
It is, and folks that are a little bit further south, Texas, Florida, et cetera, they're going out at 2.5 to 3 weeks. And I would tell you that once you feel comfortable, that once you've removed the extra heat source and you feel comfortable that the chicks are doing okay, I like for them, you don't necessarily force them outside, but you have an access for them to go out and let them acclimate if they're on their own terms. So if you have a doorway or, whatever your setup is, but let them go out, let them figure it out, let them go out for a half hour, whatever, hour, and come back in. They need to, whenever you're changing that environment, it's more the environment. They need to do it gradually. For our listeners, right here with, show birds, heritage birds, etc. You have that ability to let that transition to range be different. And each one of those birds is going to be different, right? You always have that biggest chick, the most mature, right? Stand out. He's going to want to run out the door and explore the entire outside, right? And you're going to have the little itty bitty that, is the runt, and it's probably going to be the last one to want to run out. So they're all going to be different. And I wouldn't gather them all up and just plunk them all outside at the same time. I think you're looking for trouble there. If you can transition them, you're going to be a lot happier.
And I know you mentioned the piling earlier, but I feel like that first few days outside, that freak thunderstorm, that thing that happens in the middle of the night, can you talk about what to watch for a little bit when you first take them out?
I mean, there's so many things, anything that causes them stress. So their security or their feeling of security, they're going to huddle together. They're going to, group. They're going to want to be one tight group, right? That's kind of where they come from, If we didn't screw them up and we were hen hatching, right, they would all hatch underneath the mom as a group, right? So they know, that group is security, somewhat instinctual. So, whether it's a thunderstorm, whether it's a dog barking, whatever is stressing them out, that's also going to trigger them to want to pile. It doesn't always mean that they're cold, but it can be other stress factors as well, just like Karen mentioned.
That, and it might be the first time they've been exposed to darkness.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Well, if you're lighting with lights, if you're heating with lights, then
that's true. That's true.
Well, I'm hoping that people are moving over more to like a true infrared light, or an infrared heater, or like a sweeter heater or something like that, versus, like a high intensity white heat lamp, which are horrible. So you put me under a white heat lamp, I'm going to go crazy too. So, it's not.
I think put you under any heat lamp, you'd probably go crazy.
The red ones are okay. If you get the true red glass heat
Okay,
lamp.
but for chickens or for you? I feel like you might run a little hot.
Yeah, I do run a little hot. You didn't have to bring that up, Karen.
Well, no,
This is not the time or place.
I shouldn't call you hot. I apologize, Jeff.
Hey, thanks.
Holy crap! Hey, before we go on to our next question, let's pop this question from a viewer up there. Adam's Greenhouse wants to know, Rhineck, any way to reverse it, and what causes it?
90% of the time, it's a thiamine deficiency, which is part of the B vitamin family. If you can get a water soluble or a liquid type thiamine, if you can get a drop or two into the chick, you have to get it early, because once the muscle sets, once it's been Rhineck for, a couple of days, the muscles kind of lock up and tense up in that position. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying your likelihood of fixing it after 2 days goes down really, really quickly. But there's a product called, it's made by Swanson, and it's called Total B Liquid. You can look it up. You can get it at Walmart. You can order it on Amazon. I think you just ought to have a couple bottles in the medicine cabinet, and I hope you never have to use them. But, it has a dropper in it. You can put a few drops in the chick's beak. You can add a dropper full to the chick's, to the group's water. But most of the time, it is a thiamine deficiency. People that get carried away with amprolium or cord will see more of it, because the coccidiostats or the amprolium actually is I can't say the word, but it basically ties up thiamine, which starves the coccidiosis out. That's how its mode of action is. So if you're going to use cord or an amprolium product, you may want to actually supplement with additional thiamine to protect yourself over that time. What, Karen?
Are you channeling Ingrid? Yeah.
No.
Can conventional coccidiosis treatment, like cord, be the cause of Rhineck? Are you sure you're not
I love it.
channeling Ingrid? Yeah.
Nope, I didn't see that. So
that was why I was laughing. Yeah.
That was priceless.
Yeah.
That was priceless. What's our next question on our list here, Karen?
Oops.
Is it? Whoa.
Yeah.
You jumped ahead on me.
I clicked it twice, and then I went back. Yeah.
At what age should I change chicks from starter to grower? And to me, here again, it's one of those things. It's not a hard and fast rule that at this age I switch them over. Okay. But Jeff, what I'm going to reserve my thoughts before I get into trouble here. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay, so here is the simple rule of thumb for this. Okay, this is the way I tell people. So, depending on your breed and how long until it reaches sexual maturity, like when do you expect to see the first egg, I take that time frame and I divide it into 3 parts. Okay, so most of the time I'm working with like a 24-week-old. A lot of your Brahmas and different things will basically be pretty close to laying that first egg at 24 weeks. So I would want 8 weeks on starter, 8 weeks on grower, 8 weeks on a developer, right? If I could have it the way it, ought to be, the way I was taught, it would be 3 equal sections, right? You're looking at a 22 starter, 18-19% grower, and a 16.5 or 17% developer, right? That's the step down for the protein, and the energy needs to change along the way as well, right? So once you're in that developer phase, you do not want a high energy fat building type feed because I don't want internal fat. We want the rest of the body to develop correctly. Ovaries, testes, oviduct, all those sort of things. But anyway, that rearing period from chick to, I don't want to say maturity, but sexual maturity, where you might see the first egg, divide that into 3, and those are your break points. But still, going along with what Rip's saying, you have to be able to make observation. Are they fully feathered? Are these parts of their body properly developed before you make the change? You can almost put a calendar on it, but then you still have to make the observation, and see
Yep.
where they're at.
Yep.
And
Go ahead, Karen.
now I feel like they might not be improving recipe wise, but availability wise with shipping and that sort of thing. Like, back 10 years ago, I could not buy grower except for meat bird grower at the store. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You still can't, Karen. You still
Okay.
can't.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do people get to
Availability
something
isn't.
they call grower?
Yeah, availability really isn't any better than it was 10
Okay.
years. It's a little bit, just a little bit.
Well, I feel like you've got. They might not be good quality, but you've got a lot more places that will deliver to you than used
Yeah.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you got some new players in the marketplace that are making feeds available that weren't typically available 10 years ago. I agree with you.
But how do you get to grower then? Because that's not going to be something that's sitting on their shelf waiting for them to buy. I mean,
It's
if they
not.
don't have your book, yeah.
It's not. And, honestly, if once you find a really good starter, I'd much rather. So just, and we're happy to work with folks on these things, but if you can stay on the starter, and if you're willing to hand add, like some oats to that or something else, some oats or some barley or, even some alfalfa meal, that'll bring the protein down. That'll keep the energy under control. Adding corn or wheat or milo is going to keep the energy level too high for that grower phase. So people could do hand ads if they're willing to do it, and that makes the most sense. But not. You're right. To find a heritage breed grower or a heritage breed even developer in the next phase, nearly impossible. And it's been my frustration, not with the group, but it's been my frustration with feed manufacturers, is they want to lump all chickens into very narrow categories, and this is all they make available.
Yeah.
So
I will say that I'm starting to see grower a little bit more than developer. I can't. I mean, the holding diet, because I can't. Gosh, I don't know when I've seen that.
No such thing. Yeah.
no, I haven't either. And they figure most people with backyard flocks are just going to start feeding scratch or layer feed, and that's their idea. That 16% layer feed is their idea of a holding feed, right? And it's really not. But I'm working with a few mills trying to get these formulas out, but it's not. They're few and far between, and people just are not very close to them.
All right.
Now,
So along those lines, John's asking, as you're switching, do you mix the different types of feed together when you switch over?
I like a 7-day transition. So, when you're getting close, I'd like to have, still have 3 or 4 days worth of starter, 3 or 4 days worth of grower, start mixing them, 50-50 or so, just so you don't have a sudden transition. But if he's got his own feeds or something, for the folks who are making their own feed, we're always using the same ingredients. So I don't worry about a sudden transition. It's if someone's going from like a Nutrina feed to a Kalmbach feed, or if there's a big appearance change, or if there's a big aroma change, then you need to do a slow transition where you're mixing the two feeds together.
All right. Ingrid's got a doozy here. So then would it be wise for people who feed medicated starter to plan on some vitamin B supplementation once they get their birds on the grower feed?
Yeah, I mean, actually, they should probably be doing some extra vitamin B supplement the whole time. Um, for folks who have been watching us for most of this 2 years that we've been going, they've heard me preach against medicated feed. Especially folks in the groups where I'm like, I am anti-medicated feed. Sorry, folks, there's no need for it. There really is no need for it. Rip, you just started chicks. Did you feed any medications?
I did not.
And how did they do?
Better than anything I've raised before.
So,
And that's because I'm feeding a good high quality feed, And I didn't even have so much as a sniffle out of these things.
Yeah. I mean, good housekeeping, good sanitation, good bedding, that's really where it's at. There's no need to feed a medicated feed. The medications are only to control coccidiosis, and coccidiosis has to be ingested from the ground. So if you're keeping your bedding and your litter managed correctly, you're keeping your feeders managed correctly, there's no need, for this. But
I can't help it. When
go ahead.
When you're on your 35th year of raising birds on the tiny property that you have and the way that you can manage,
Yeah,
it's hard. You know what I mean?
it'll happen, right? There's still ways around it, but they're not easy. I get it. You have such a buildup. And with the commercial flocks that I work with, larger scale, but they're still pastured. We're fighting it. I've got places that have been raising birds on the same ground for the last 20 years. And now we're always being challenged with something, right?
I just want to say it for the people that literally are doing everything they can to be best by their birds, but they don't have the land. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't have.
No, you're right.
All right. Yep.
And our next question, Miss Karen.
Question. Okay.
Is it okay to raise cockerels and pullets together? I don't like to do that. Cockerels are going to wind up bullying the pullets early on. They're going to eat more. They're going to keep the pullets running away from the feed. They're going to pick the females. I try to separate the sexes as soon as I can tell them apart.
I'm with you, Rip. Amen, 100%. Now, I don't mind them feeding the same pullet developer feed or, developer feed.
Right.
But I can live with that, even though I did make a cockerel developer feed. But yeah, as soon as you can tell the sexes apart, you need to separate them. And there's other reasons behind that, but not everybody has the facilities to do it. But if you separate them, right, when it's time to bring them back together for mating, they're a whole lot more anxious and willing than if you raise them together.
But tell me, because the first thing everybody thinks is, I don't know who's who. Like, I can't figure out who's the girls and who's the boys. So what's the harm if you try to separate them and you don't get it quite right?
I don't know that there's a major harm there. It's not going to be that many more days until you can tell who's who. I mean, usually by 10, 12 weeks old, you've got a really good idea.
I'd say 6 or 7 if you're weighing, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're weighing, but we just can't seem to get, everybody to weigh. But you'll know the difference after, you'll know the difference after about 4 weeks if you're weighing, just because the cockerels go that much faster.
But that's all I want to say. People are always feeling like if I don't get it right, then I've messed something up. But you've gotten it 90% right, and it still helped them out,
Oh, sure.
Then.
Sure.
So, all right. Rip, what do you want to do? Questions or?
Well, I was going to plop this up here from Carrie Blackman. As along the lines of what we were just talking about. Kerry wants to know, is there a way you can till the ground with lime or something to help keep down diseases?
You can, and now this is a great question, and I am really glad Carrie brought it up. Now, not all lime is created equal, so I'm going to tell you that I prefer that you use a high calcium lime, which is sometimes known as feed lime or calcium carbonate. It has a better sterilization effect, and you know, a couple things you can do. Yeah, you can work the ground, till the ground up. You can put the lime on. All that's great. Think about what you're going to plant, as a cover crop, whether it's for the chickens or better yet, this is where bringing on another species, whether you rent a cow or you get a small herd of goats or whatever, to eat that off and move those nutrients to, somewhere else, right? Let them be absorbed by the animal, sometime later that year, eat the animal. That's great. Or whatever you want to do with it, right? Just try not to make it one more pet if you can help it. But that's great, Carrie. That's exactly what people should be doing. And even for people who can't necessarily do it that well by tilling the ground, just that application of high calcium lime after each rotation of birds, you can actually rake that in, drag it, or anything just to kind of, slightly incorporate it and then get something planted. I don't care if you're planting wheat. I don't care if you're planting barley, oats, whatever. Plant something besides just letting the weeds grow up. Something that your chickens are going to enjoy. Something that's going to move nutrients around, from that location to another location. But that's a great plan if people can incorporate it.
And they can check with the county extension office to find out what plants grow best in your area. I know way down here in deep sunny South Florida, it's hard to find stuff that does well. So uh, check with your county extension office; they can steer you right.
Yeah, down your way, Rip. I would honestly, if folks would do it, I think I would bring all the birds in because you kind of get wet, in the fall and
Mm-hmm.
winter. And my friends over in O'Brien that I stay with, that's the time when they are dragging the ground and they're seeding something beneficial. So basically, you can do your whole patch. Kind of bring your chickens in to a coop area or yard area, and just work everything at one time. And once it's up 6 or 8 inches, start turning your chickens loose, right? Give them something to eat. It works great. Sun hemp is a big one down there. Believe it or not, just iron clay peas are another one.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at sun hemp, iron clay peas, probably some oats. Some black oats do well in the South is a good mix. Yeah, and I can help folks as well. I working with so many different regions and territories, I could probably, help them out. But if you've got a good extension office, like Rip said, give them a call and talk to them about cover crops or, um, things like that, a blend of cover crops.
I wanted to reach for my phone. Iron clay peas. What a weird.
Cow peas. Down so in Florida they like to call them iron clay peas. Once you get up into Georgia and the Carolinas, they just cow peas, right? So
Okay.
but they're special down in Florida. They're iron clay peas.
I don't know how we came up with that one. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Blows me away.
My family grew up in Indiana, and they swear that back in the 60s that they called green peppers mangoes.
Yes.
So they're like, I love mangoes. And I was like,
Years
that's
and
a
years ago, they used to
fruit
do that here in
versus a
Florida too.
vegetable.
Really? How did a green pepper ever get dubbed a mango?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's a new one
Probably,
on me.
probably the same way that avocados down here were at first called alligator pears.
Really?
But
That's branding. I feel like some marketing company came up with that. But
I hadn't heard alligator pears either. So
all right.
And talking about trivial information, I'm
Yeah.
loaded with it too.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got our bird on grower feed. What's next?
Well, I think Jeff kind of answered this when he was talking about dividing your time period into three, and starter, grower, and developer. So, however that works out for your particular breed, go for it.
yeah, like some of the new hams, some of the really big dual purpose birds that take 6 or 8 months, you've got to give them that time in each period, right? So you can't, it's not one size fits all again, right? I can't say every chick is only 6 weeks on starter feed, 6 weeks on grower feed, 6 weeks on, that's not how that works. So,
all right, Rip, and you may have covered it, but how do people figure out when their bird reaches maturity to divide their breed, right? How are they going to decide how to divide it into three?
Now remember, I said sexual maturity, which is first egg. Maturity. Yeah. I said sexual maturity, first egg, not full maturity, right. Like 1 year old, 2 year old.
Yeah.
And like Jeff said, you got to learn your breed for it to work really effectively for you. A question I used to get a lot when I was judging actively, well, how can I tell if my bird's mature enough to show or not? Or to cull for color falls. And what I'd always tell them is, as for color, usually by the time they've molted and grown in, they're all their adult primaries. It's okay to evaluate a bird for color. But, here again, that is so dependent. Karen, you raised Rhode Island Reds.
So I was going to say, so first egg, right? That's a point in time, right? Now it can matter whether you're, I'm going to, since Jeff is now checking his text, I'm first egg time frame is going to be different whether you're raising spring chickens or fall chickens. Like, that would still apply though, right? Because it's because of their difference in growth rate why that moves around, right? So you're just going to know it on your second, third, fourth, 57th year raising chickens, right? It's just not something you're going to know unless
it's
your
not
breeder
something you're going to
out.
pick up on overnight. No, it just takes a little experience.
But ask where you got your birds from, right?
Yeah, ask your breeder
when you expect to see that first egg. And okay, all right, sorry, just remembering all the things that messed me up at first. But like Rip said, the difference between my Australorps laying their first egg at 19 weeks and my Rhode Island Reds not. Yeah.
Yeah, your Rhode Island should have been what, 24, 26 weeks? Somewhere around 24.
To lay an egg? Yeah, a little bit longer than that. But yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Time of year, huge difference.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So
we're not all talking about spring pullets.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Well, because even if you're talking spring, right, in order for me to hatch enough, the first ones are hatched in February, the last ones are hatched in June. Do you know what I mean? Like, so huge difference there between that.
What's our next question, Miss Karen?
When should I start offering oyster shells to pullets? After they've gone to the beach.
Oh, jeez.
No? Okay.
You're feeling good tonight, Karen. I can tell.
I am ready for bed. Yeah.
Rip, what do you think?
Honestly, I wait till I start getting an egg or two, and then I'll start supplementing with grit. With oyster shell. Just want to see if you're on your toes, Karen.
Yeah.
So here's the only caveat to that, and I agree with what you said, Rip. But for folks who can't find a pullet developer feed, I do want to start offering it at that last trimester of development, only because I want to build up bone density in that pullet. A lot of people don't understand that About half, and that's not a perfect number, but about half of the calcium used to form an eggshell comes out of a hen's bone, right? The other half comes out of what she eats. So we want to have, really good, strong, healthy bones just before going into lay. So I would start offering it to them in the developer stage. Look, they're not going. It's not tasty. They're not going to eat it just for fun, right? So you're not losing anything by offering it to them, and you're not going to hurt anything. Also, it kind of trains them as to what it is, what it looks like. So when they're later in life, they'll be more apt to go looking for it. Um, when I had birds, here at the back in the backyard, is one group of hens knew exactly what an oyster shell was, and they would eat them, very well. The next group, no, they had no clue what this was. They didn't eat any. So, I have no idea, but that's I would start, somewhere probably week 14, 15, 16, and let them start building up bone mass.
And that's free choice, right? You're not talking about putting
Yeah,
it
no,
on
I'm
their
not force feeding it. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
free choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oyster shells are getting hard to find. So, folks who are listening, I would tell you to stockpile. Prices are going up and availability is getting harder. So, if you still can go down to your local store and get them for a reasonable price, get extra. They never go bad. They don't spoil. They don't have a shelf life. So,
Poor Rip got all of his questions answered in one easy.
Well, no, that's okay. As long as we're getting them covered, that's the main thing.
sorry, Rip. I'm not looking at the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. Like they said, we already got to this one.
Yeah. Well, you switch over at the first egg, right? I mean, that's the rule of thumb is you don't go to layer feed until you see the first egg, right? And then you switch the entire flock or that group over. So,
Can
There's
oyster
the one
shells,
for Rip.
yeah. Can oyster shells replace grit in my bird's diet? No.
nope, not
Only
a bit.
by slip of the tongue. Yeah.
Nope.
They are,
One's a calcium source.
yeah, and the other one's hard granite.
Yep.
The calcium the oyster shells are too soft to do you much good. You want that hard granite grit to help grind the feed, work the gizzard, make the feed more digestible. So no, don't try to interchange them.
All right. Along those lines, just because we have it, Bill's been mixing 50-50 oyster shell, crust dried eggshells, and offering it in a small separate feeder. Any benefits or problems with mixing them together versus 100% oyster shells?
Nope, that's perfect.
None
I
at
like
all.
it. The only thing I tell people if they want to refeed eggshells is to make sure, and this is only a personal phobia. There is no science behind this. I'd just as soon they not get offered still looking like an eggshell. I don't want to encourage egg eating by the birds. So, crush them up good so they don't have any similarity or to an eggshell. But
So-
no, I don't have any problem with that.
So at my fancy boutique chicken store locally, I can buy oyster shell that looks like actual shells. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to the oyster shell at Tractor Supply that looks like rocks, right? So they eat that infinitely better than they
Yeah.
do the rock stuff. Any
True
danger
oyster shell.
that they overeat it or
Mm-mm.
no?
No, but they will. They're going to take a true oyster shell.
Yeah.
They're going to take that a whole lot better than. So what Tractor Supply and some other places are passing off is a mixture of calcium chips and a little bit of oyster shell blended together.
Yeah.
Simply because back to availability and price, oyster shell is getting hard to find, right? So to keep prices down where everybody thinks they ought to be, right?
Which
They've
is
now
basically free, right?
started
That's what people
blending.
think.
Yeah. But yeah, I just heard oyster shell in Virginia was up to around $16 for 50-pound bag.
Whoa.
True oyster shell. Yeah. So again, stockpile.
But it's worth it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It is worth it. I
ultimately,
agree.
yeah.
But it's not quite. It's up like almost 60% from where it used to be. It used to be $10 or $11 a bag. Now they're looking at 16 to 18. And
I
this is
remember.
buying it by the pallet in quantity. This isn't buying onesie
Yeah.
twosies at the local.
Yeah. So it's probably up to $30 at the.
Yeah.
I just remember the first time I put out the true oyster shells, and like the next day it was half gone, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah. Well, it actually still has some of that sea life smell to it, and they can detect that.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a small amount
More
of salt to it, so it's got a
That's
better
sort of what the
flavor, better
eggshells are
smell.
too, right?
Yeah.
That they're just a little bit more exciting than.
Yep.
Okay. Karen, do we
What
have any more?
questions do you want? Yeah.
We have questions. So,
Okay, that's done. So we're.
all right.
What causes blood spots on yolks?
When you
Uh,
cut yourself,
so,
making eggs.
Sue, take a close look and actually, like next time you see one, maybe get a tweezer or something and pull it, look at it a little closer. A lot of times those are actually meat spots. And as a hen ages, if there's a difference between a blood spot and a meat spot, but as a hen gets older, parts of her oviduct may slough off and come into the yolk, way up in the oviduct and it'll end up in near the yolk as a meat spot. And typically it's older hens, right? Now, when some of you listening, and sooner or later, eventually we'll all see this, but you'll see it looks more, it's a blood spot, and it actually looks more like a drop of blood incorporated in the egg somewhere. And it can be by the yolk, it can be somewhere else. And when you see that, it's a sign that, somewhere along the oviduct, a blood vessel has, ruptured. And look, there's a lot of trauma on that oviduct as that egg passes down through there. So, it's going to happen. Again, it's kind of an age thing. You'll see a little bit more as the hen gets old, but it's odd to see it in a pullet egg. Unless she's had something traumatic or something. Yeah, that's pullet. Generally, we don't see it. So
I want to say only because I ignored it for a while. I feel like it's a little bit genetic.
could be.
I feel like
Could be.
the daughters tended to. So maybe track that if
I don't
it's a
know.
bird that you love to see what. Because I mean, it's fine to eat and all that, but it's not.
And she said it was definitely blood. So that if it's definitely blood and not a meat spot, then the egg size may be too big. Also, Sue, for the size of the pullet, she might be trying to lay an egg that's way too big for her. So if you get a chance, weigh that egg and let me know. But it definitely is a blood vessel along the oviduct that has ruptured and secreted blood into that egg. So that's what causes it. Now we have to figure out why. I wonder if it's not egg size.
Could be. Shaggy's got a question here. I'm thinking about mobile A-frame grow pens. How many square feet of ground would you recommend for each chick 1 month old and on? Honestly, this is not anything I've had experience with.
A-frame square feet, mature birds, daily move. Each chick 1 month old and on. Shaggy, the right answer is each square foot of ground can support 4 pounds of live animal weight per day. Okay, that's the only answer I can give you. So, when they're chicks at a month old, it's going to be 4 chicks per square foot. But by the time that they're mature, if you're talking about an 8-pound hen, depending on the breed, she's going to need 2 square foot per bird. So it graduates. The best rule of thumb I can tell you is 4 pounds live animal weight per square foot per day.
And that's rotated, right? That's not if you leave
Yeah,
your mobile.
that's
free.
not. Yeah, that has to be moved.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, hey, Sue Dobson is on it tonight. You told her to go weigh an egg. She went and weighed it, 1.9 ounces.
So
Yeah,
almost a large egg.
Yeah, it's almost a large egg, but I mean, the hen should or the pullet should be able to manage that. That's not if she'd come back at like 2.2 or 2.5, then I could see why there would be a blood spot. So yeah, something in the oviduct, you know, I don't know, unless she strained too hard or something, but there's no reason for it, Sue. You've got me puzzled.
All right. We'd like, and just Samir's come back. We like Mike's design, right? Okay.
Mike's design.
I won't touch. Okay.
Go
yeah,
ahead.
you don't touch.
Now I'm done. You can do it.
So, Samir, the mobile A-frame like Mike's.
Yes,
We like that design.
we do. It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah. And if anybody hasn't seen it, he's got some nice YouTube videos out there of his.
I haven't seen it.
Well,
I
we
will-
can't really go show it to you right
You
now.
may have to remind me tomorrow, but I'll link to it on our groups.
All right.
All right. You pick, Rip. I won't touch.
No, I don't think we don't have another one, do we?
I don't know.
I don't see another one.
Okay. All right. We're good. We have one from early on that confused me because I spent 6 years doing this, ignoring everything that Jeff recommends. But I realized when he read the whole thing that I have yet to do anything that Jeff has recommended. And I was like, oh, me neither. Yeah. But then that has not greatly benefited me. So totally changed the meaning of that sentence.
Come on, Karen. You were my best student ever. You know.
Yeah. It took me 6 years before I listened to you.
I know.
So, yeah.
He said you
once
were the best student, not the fastest learner.
Right. She learned it. She just asked me 6 different
Didn't want to
times
do
if that was the right thing to do, right? So
Yeah.
she vets her investments better than most people.
There you go. So,
Indeed, she does.
Yes.
Well, folks, that's all I've got tonight. Jeff or Karen, do y'all have anything else?
I think we're good.
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
Well, by golly, until next time, keep watching your birds. And hey, I know some of y'all are going to be getting some more severe cold and snow and all that kind of stuff out in the Midwest states. So please do what you can to keep yourself safe, you and your birds both, and to be prepared as much as you possibly can.
Keep them warm, but what? Ventilation.
Ventilation. Well, hey Rip, before we sign off, and I don't know if anybody's made the frigid mix that I shared with John, you know, with the oil and the cracked corn and the wheat, but you know, the other simple, easy thing is roughly a tablespoon of just cracked corn per hen per day, per bird per day, only when the temperatures go below freezing. Okay, don't get carried away, and use it as a supplement, you know, to their regular feeding program. So that's all they need.
Very good. Well,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Jeff and Karen, thanks for being here with all your support and help. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to seeing you guys again in 2 weeks. So until then, keep enjoying your birds. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.